happen.
And he doesn't shy away from opinion.
And I do enjoy drinking cold beer at ballparks. So if that makes me a baseball fan, then I'm a diehard baseball fan.
It's Hacker After Dark on 1010XL.
And a very good Monday evening to you, Jacksonville. It is Hacker After Dark, 1010XL 92.5 FM with Dylan Denmark. The Hacker Ryan Green with you. Glad you are with us as we embark on a new week. We are now 3.5 weeks outside of the NFL draft. We have a Final Four. We have the regular season in the National Basketball Association beginning to wind down. We have a kicker that made a 64-yard kick to win a game in the UFL over the weekend. And we have Major League Baseball going on. And in the women's Elite Eight right now, we got a great rivalry between Iowa and LSU that everybody is talking about, and we will keep you updated on that. Right now, LSU up a bucket as we get near halftime. So there is a ton to do. We are glad you are with us. Tonight here on Hacker After Dark, guest lineup looks like this. Demetrius Harvey of the Florida Times-Union, Jacksonville.com, will join us in less than 20 minutes. Demetrius put out his first mock draft today. I haven't talked to Demetrius since the Jaguar free agent haul. And I also wanted to get into a conversation about Trent Baalke. Now, Demetrius and I did something kind of interesting over the weekend on social media. We had a respectful conversation, right? I think we disagreed with some aspects, but it was a back and forth, a give and take, but it was respectful. No name calling, nothing like that, which is odd for today's day and age in social media. Normally when somebody disagrees with you, they're the worst thing ever and they suck and this, that, and the other, which that's what social media is. More times than not, it's a complete toilet. But I had Demetrius on today and wanted to have him on because of the conversation we had about Trent Baalke. And that's actually where I'm going to begin some thoughts in just a moment. But Demetrius Harvey of the Times-Union, less than 20 minutes away. Also, Luke Easterling of Athlon Sports previewing the Jaguars and their draft outlook. That is also coming up at the top of the 7 o'clock hour. Again, we're glad you're with us on a Monday. By the way, now, every night, 8 o'clock to 10 o'clock. Look, Denmark, I know that you're going to miss those 10 to midnight shows on Tuesday. I'm certainly going to miss those 10 to midnight shows on Tuesday. They were an awful lot of fun being here until midnight every Tuesday night for the last 2 years. But no, now every night, Monday through Friday, Hacker After Dark, 8 o'clock to 10 o'clock, and we love it. Here's a moment of silence and reflection for our Tuesday night 10 to midnight show. Again, loads of fun and excitement to be here till midnight, but I'm certainly glad that those days are behind us. New lineup on 1010XL, and we're going to be here with you every night from 8 o'clock until 10 o'clock. As we do here on Hacker After Dark to kick it off, we give you a big deal of the night and Dylan Denmark. Let's do that right now.
Time now for the big deal of the night.
What's the big deal?
What is the big deal?
No big deal.
It is a big deal.
On Hacker After Dark.
Okay, so Friday night, I made a statement. Then I put it on social media, and that blew up. I think 12,000 views, right? A couple hundred responses. It got pretty wild. And it was just a thought about Trent Baalke that I had. Look, I'm not saying he's the best GM in the NFL. I'm not saying he's done a great job here. But he's not near as bad as some Jaguar fans try to make him out to be. And because I got so much response, including some from some colleagues of mine here in the media in town, I kind of wanted to dive into it a little deeper this week. So what we're going to do every night here on Hacker After Dark for the remainder of the week is we're going to go back to the COVID year, the 2020 season, and we're going to look at the roster. That was the last year of Dave Caldwell. Now, Trent Baalke was here. He was on staff, but he was not the general manager. Trent Baalke did not assume the general manager duties until 2021. So just to put in some perspective how horrific this roster was in 2020 compared to where Trent Baalke has taken it in roughly the last 42 months, I guess, right? You're talking August of 2020 when the season started compared to where we are now, March, or I guess April of 2024. All right, your leading passer for the Jacksonville Jaguars in 2020 was Gardner Minshew. Started 8 games, threw for 2,259 yards. Mike Glennon also threw for 1,000 yards that year, started 5 games. And Jake Luton started 3 games in 2020, throwing for 624 yards. Those quarterbacks did combine for 25 touchdowns and 16 interceptions. Gardner Minshew did have 16 touchdowns and 5 picks in 2020. Again, Minshew, Glennon, and Luton is what Trent Baalke inherited during the 2020 Jaguar season. Your leading rushers on the ground, James Robinson did have 1,000 yards in 2020. Averaged 4.5 yards a carry. Unfortunately, after James Robinson, your second leading rusher was Dare Ogunbowale, who ran for $145. Actually, check that. Gardner Minshew statistically had more rushing yards than your second string running back. Minshew ran for $153. And those are the 3 guys. Minshew, Ogunbowale, and Robinson were the only ones that had 100 yards rushing or more in 2020. Laviska Shenault had 91 yards rushing. Chris Thompson had 20 yards rushing. And that's where we'll stop tonight. Quarterback and running back. Again, we're going to do every position throughout the week. But quarterback and running back. So, Dave Caldwell's last year. 2020, last year before Trent Baalke took over as GM. Your quarterbacks, Gardner Minshew, Mike Glennon, and Jake Luton. And your running backs, James Robinson, Dare Ogunbowale, and Chris Thompson. It's awful, right? That's awful. That's where the Jaguars were just 3.5 years ago. That is not a lot of time. 3.5 years ago. Again, the COVID year, September 2020. Chris Thompson, Dare Ogunbowale, James Robinson, Jake Luton, Mike Glennon, Gardner Minshew. Compare that to where we are now with the Jaguar roster. Trevor Lawrence, C.J. Beathard, Mac Jones, Travis Etienne, Tank Bigsby, D'Ernest Johnson. It's not even close, man. It's not even close. Better quarterbacks now than what Baalke inherited. Better running backs now than what Baalke inherited. And some of these positions might be close throughout the week, although I don't think many will be. This one is not even close. And even take Etienne and Lawrence off the table. Just having Beathard and Mac Jones compared to Mike Glennon and Jake Luton. Having Tank Bigsby and D'Ernest Johnson compared to Chris Thompson and Dare Ogunbowale. Awful. Awful. This week is not going to be Trent Baalke is the best thing ever. This week is not going to be Trent Baalke deserves a 5-year contract extension and a huge raise because he's done such a fantastic job. Far from that. But I'm just going to point out throughout most of the shows this week the dumpster fire Baalke inherited and how after just 3 short years, he's taken what was a 1-win team in 2020 and a 3-win team in 2021 to back-to-back 9-win seasons and a playoff victory. That's not easy to do. That's the bottom line. You may not like the process that Baalke goes through. You may not like some of the decisions that Balky has made, and that's fair, because I don't agree with every decision Balky has made. But I know this. He's the best general manager the Jacksonville Jaguars have had in 20 years, and it's not close. When you compare him to Dave Caldwell, you compare him to Gene Smith, and you compare him to Shaq Harris, it's not close. So, the Jaguars roster coming into 2024, again, the draft is 3 weeks away, but it's a roster that can compete. It's a roster that is playoff worthy. It's a roster that has won a playoff game. And it's a roster, to me, that has been upgraded since January 7th when they lost to Tennessee. Mitch Morse, Eric Armstead, Gabe Davis, Darnell Savage, Devin Duvernay, Ronald Darby, Joey Sly, Trevis Gibson, Mac Jones. The Jaguars are better right now than they were January 7th. The interesting thing is we tend to forget that they were 8-3, right? Everybody talks about the collapse and 1-5 down the stretch, and obviously that's the big story. But remember when the team was relatively healthy? Remember when Trevor wasn't battling injuries every week? They were 8-3. You tend to lose sight of that. And I'm very excited the way the roster's being shaped. I'm very excited what the Jaguars have done in free agency. And truthfully, I'm pretty excited about the draft coming up in 3 weeks. I did my first mock draft, my Monday mock today. Again, very, very, very unscientific. I would not call myself a draftnik, at least yet. I tend to get more engaged as we get days away from it, but I certainly know enough to do a mock. And earlier today, I took Quinyon Mitchell at 17, the corner out of Toledo. Ricky Pearsall at 48. Denmark, am I a Gator homer, or is 48 about right for Ricky Pearsall?
No, that's about good.
So Quinyon Mitchell and Ricky Pearsall. I took Cedric Van Pran out of Georgia, who can play either center or guard projected in the NFL. I took him in round 3. And then we kind of get into the minutia of things, but I also went D-tackle, edge rusher, tight end, and safety for my final picks. But if you tell me right now the Jaguars end up with Quinyon Mitchell and Ricky Pearsall, I would take that. I would take that. The only caveat is, and I've been pretty consistent on this, if for some reason Jared Verse is there at 17, that's not necessarily a position of need. You could argue DB, wide receiver, maybe even offensive tackle are bigger positions of need than edge with Trayvon Walker and Josh Allen. I don't care. I would take Jared Verse in a heartbeat. The idea of Jared Verse, Eric Armstead, Josh Allen, and Trayvon Walker makes me want to lick my chops, man. Salivating over that idea. And I'm surprised that a lot of these mock drafts have Verse available at 17. I thought he'd be a surefire top 12, absolutely top 15, and he still may be. Some mock drafts have him going in that area, but a lot more mock drafts than I would have ever imagined have Jared Verse available at 17. I'll tell you what's crazy too, Denmark, is he hasn't fallen this far yet. Brock Bowers is falling. And I don't know if it's because he didn't really work out in Indy and then he didn't work out at his pro day. I'm not sure why, and maybe it won't matter in 3.5 weeks. But remember when Bowers was a projected top 5 pick?
Yeah, what's he fallen to?
I mean, I've seen him outside the top 10 a few times. Which,
after 14, I'm like, okay, that's not going to happen.
No, look, I don't even think, this isn't even a Jaguar thing about taking Brock Bowers. Obviously, they have Evan Ingram, and they invested a second-round pick in Brenton Strange last year. But it's interesting that guys are falling for whatever reason. Bowers appears to be one. Jared Verse may not be falling. Maybe he was here all along, but man alive, if he's there at 17, I would absolutely run that card to the podium. Run it to get Jared Verse here, and I'd figure out DB and wide receiver later. That, to me, is the perfect night if the Jaguars land Jared Verse at number 17. I don't even want to really think about it because I would get too excited. I'd get fired up on an April Fool's Day edition of Hacker After Dark. We got a lot to do till 10 o'clock. We're glad you're with us. We got NBA coming up. We got NFL coming up. We got a little UFL coming up. 64-yarder to win a game. If I'm that kicker, my agent, I assume those guys have agents, I'm on the phone with every NFL team that needs a kicker right now. I don't care what league you're in. You hit a 64-yarder as time expires to win a football game, that's worthy of an invite to training camp. And we'll see what happens. Bates, I believe is his name, the kicker that made that kick. And he made two of them. He made a 64-yarder, but a timeout was called, so it didn't count. He had to do it again, and he hit it again. He hit two 64-yarders on Saturday. UFL's good, man. I know people hate spring football, and you're contractually obligated as a football fan to say how bad it sucks and this, that, and the other, which is fine. Whatever. Me personally, it's football in the months of April and May. I'm going to watch it. Not as religiously as I watch the NFL, but I took a look at it this weekend. I enjoyed it. It is what it is. And that was one of the highlights, no question. It was a highlight for the Jaguars this offseason as they brought in a lot of free agents. I want to talk to Demetrius Harvey of the Times-Union about the Jaguar free agent haul, but I want to dive more into Trent Baalke. Again, Demetrius and I had a very good back and forth on Twitter on Saturday. Respectful. You can be respectful in those conversations. You don't have to be mean or ugly, like most people are. Boy, I got called everything under the sun. They wanted me to do things to my mother, and it was just unreal. Some of the things that people called me. Grown men calling people these 4, 7, 10-letter words. Good grief, Denmark. It made me blush, to be honest. But Demetrius Harvey didn't do that. And I figure if we're going to have that back and forth on social media, why not bring it to the radio? And we will next. Demetrius Harvey talking Jags free agents and talking Trent Baalke. That's next on a Monday night edition here in Jacksonville. It's Hacker After Dark.
1010XL takes you behind the microphone.
What happened here was a miracle, and I want you to kind of acknowledge it.
Dan Hicken and Jeff Prosser.
All right, it was a miracle.
The Drill. Mornings on 1010XL.
Can we go now?
Hacker here for Awaken 180 weight loss. 4 weeks. 4 weeks, just over a month, as a matter of fact. I started this thing on February 20th, had my first weigh-in on February 27th. So we're talking just over 4 weeks. 40 pounds. I'm down 40 pounds with Awaken 180 weight loss. It is absolutely changing my life. I've tried a lot of weight loss programs in the past. Nothing, absolutely nothing, has had the results for me that Awaken 180 weight loss has had. 40 lbs since the end of February. If you need to get involved with Awaken 180, if it's time for you to lose weight, do yourself a favor like it was for me. Call 844-346-1800. That's 844-346-1800, or go online, awaken180weightloss.com. It is changing lives. I'm one of them. You could be the next. Awaken 180 weight loss.
Without the ones like you, who work tirelessly to keep things running, everything would suddenly stop. Hospitals, factories, schools, and power plants, they all depend on you. No matter the weather, emergency, or time of day, you're the ones who get it done. At Grainger, we're here for you with professional-grade industrial supplies. Count on real-time product availability and fast delivery. Call, clickgrainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Bueller Air Conditioning presents
Are you cool?
Today's lucky contestant, a cheese negotiator from Jacksonville, Florida. Meet Margaret Drent.
How do you like my costume, Bob? I'm Gruyere.
Well, you smell great, Margaret. But here's your question. What's wrong with your air conditioner when you hear this sound?
Oh, that's a toughie. Are you sure you don't want me to tell you the suggested retail price of a box of Rice-A-Roni?
5 seconds, Margaret.
Is it a compressor motor starter failure?
That's right, Margaret. And if you call the coolness experts at Bueller Air Conditioning, we can fix that faulty AC to make sure that
You are cool.
Surprisingly stuffy inside a giant cheese.
You signed the waiver, Margaret.
Stay cooler with Bueller.
Visit BuellerAir.com.
Here's your 1010XL community calendar of local events and nonprofit groups helping people here at home.
You could work for the Jaguars this season. They're hoping to fill over 1,000 part-time positions. Attend their job fair Wednesday afternoon at Everbank Stadium. Learn more at jaguars.com.
Builders Care is looking for volunteers, and there are so many ways you can help. Find out how at builderscare.org.
If you'd like to play in the Northeast Florida Cornhole Tournament at Wingate Park May 18th,
register at tsunami10u at mail.com.
It benefits Tsunami Fast Pitch Softball.
City Rescue Mission provides life-changing support for the homeless. Find ways to get involved at crmjax.org.
Hope Haven believes in children and youth with special needs and abilities and has developed programs to help ensure their success. Find out more about their employment services and internship program at hope-haven.org.
You can find out how to share your community event at 1010XL.com.
Hey sports fans, it's Hayes Carline for Kingfish Pest Control. Are mosquitoes turning your outdoor fun into a full contact sport? Time to call in Kingfish Pest Control. I can tell you from my own experience, they are the MVPs of mosquito elimination. See for yourself. Call Kingfish Pest Control today and get an unbeatable 50% off your first treatment. That's right, sign up for a full season of lockdown coverage and get 50% off your first treatment. Don't let mosquitoes steal your home field advantage. Reclaim your yard with Kingfish Pest Control.
Jacksonville is listening. 1010XL 92.5 FM.
Instant Keys. You don't have to go to the dealer. Instant Keys comes to you.
Instant Keys saves the day if you have lost or broken keys. They can program new keys and remotes for nearly every make and model of vehicle at a fraction of the dealership cost. Fast, honest, and reliable locksmith service. Call 722-1111.
Instant Keys. Instant Keys. You don't have to go to the dealer. Instant Keys comes to you.
This is Keith Catlin for Catlin Truck Accessories, and we are so blessed to be in business for over 100 years. Over 100 years of the best product and customer service means you can count on Catlin. From roll and lock bed covers to Lear toppers to cam locker toolboxes, Catlin Truck Accessories has you covered when it comes to your truck or van. We do those too. Got a fleet of vehicles? We can outfit them all.
Who can you count on? Count on Catlin.
One name, one location, 100 years. You can count on Catlin.
Keeping your body healthy and active leads to a more vibrant life. A great place to do that is the First Coast YMCA. The Y is equipped with state-of-the-art cardio and strength equipment, plus group exercise studios where trainers host activities like yoga, Zumba, and cycling sessions. The full-court basketball gym and indoor 5-lane swimming pool are open year-round. The Kids Zone can keep an eye on your kids while you work on that dad bod. And it's all available with your family membership. Learn more at fcymca.org.
1010XL is presented by Farah and Farah, exclusive injury law firm of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Protecting you and your family. Call 396-5555. Jacksonville. Let's ring up another guest on the All-Pro Roofing phone line.
Back here on 1010XL and 92.5 FM in the city of Jacksonville. We are glad you are with us. Jaguar free agency was very active, one of the most active teams in the league, and now all eyes begin turning to the NFL draft, which is 3 weeks from this Thursday night. With that, let me welcome in Demetrius Harvey of the Florida Times-Union. He's always kind enough to join us here on 1010XL in Jacksonville. Demetrius, how are you, man?
I'm doing all right. How about you guys?
Hey, Demetrius, we're good. Thank you for the time. And all right, you and I haven't spoke since free agency, which was only 3 weeks ago, 2.5 weeks ago. It seems like a lot longer than that, quite honestly. Just your thoughts, man, on everything the Jaguars did in the month of March as far as additions and even some of the guys they either let go or lost in free agency.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I'll start with the guys they let go or lost. You know, Foley Fatukasi, Rayshon Jenkins, Darius Williams. For Fatukasi, I felt like, you know, they sort of had to move on. He just wasn't improving. He wasn't a guy that they could rely on. His injuries had caught up to him. So, you know, they sort of had to go in a different direction there. Rayshon Jenkins, I think that they already knew that this was probably going to be the year that they're going to move on. They drafted Antonio Johnson. They went out and signed Darnell Savage. It makes sense that they had a plan to sort of move on from Rayshon, who's getting a little older and who didn't really play well at all throughout the last, few games of the season. So, I felt like that made sense. Darius Williams just didn't fit. So I thought that, them getting rid of those guys and sort of moving on from the other guys like Dewan Smoot, Jack Quarterman, Brandon McManus, Jamal Agnew, Chase on, all those guys, it made sense to me because, they weren't necessarily players that you couldn't move on from. And then when you go into actually what they did in free agency, going to get Gabe Davis, Devin Duvernay, I thought that was smart in the sense of you needed a guy like Gabe to sort of solidify that at least one of those outside receiver positions. Zay Jones battled through a lot of injuries last year, entering the final year of his contract. It makes sense to sort of draft a guy who, in my opinion, replicates what Zay does well and then does a little bit more on top of it and is younger. So it just made sense to go in that direction. The same with Devin Duvernay, replacing Jamal Agnew with him. But really, I thought that the star of the class, and I think that everybody agrees, was Eric Armstead. He was a guy that as soon as it was noticed that the 49ers might release him, and then when they finally did, everybody targeted the Jags to be that team to sign him. It makes sense. Reunion with Trent Baalke. They needed him. So I thought that they did a pretty good job in free agency overall. Defensively, I think that they got better. Darnell Savage coming in at nickel, potentially playing safety, obviously, too. Ronald Darby can be your insurance guy outside with Tyson Campbell. So, I did think that they did a pretty good job of securing the needs of the team. And they're sort of running it back with the offensive line. I know not many people like that term, but you can kind of understand what they're seeing in the vision, at least in terms of rebuilding this roster.
Demetrius Harvey of the Florida Times-Union, you were at the Trent Baalke press conference about a month or so after the year, and everybody took notice of, well, we haven't begun negotiations with Josh Allen and what's going to happen with Calvin Ridley back then. But one of the things that he said, Demetrius, was the middle of the ball, right? The lines of scrimmage on both the O-line and the D-line, they wanted to get stronger. They wanted to get more physical. So what does Baalke go out and do? He does just that, right smack dab in the middle with Mitch Morse at center and with Eric Armstead on the interior of that D-line. So you take Baalke at his word, and everything he said, at least in that regard, they flat out did in free agency.
Yeah, they did, and there is some question whether or not they did enough, or whether or not, bringing back Brandon Sheriff is the right move. The same goes for Cam Robinson. So I understand people's angst in terms of the big uglies, on that side of the ball. But yeah, on defense, I know that it was only Eric Armstead, but when you think about how much positional flexibility a guy like that, if he's healthy, can give you, it's significant. I mean, you're talking about Roy Robertson Harris probably taking a back seat a bit, and he's a guy that, in my opinion, when he comes on the field, he's pretty good at times. If he can sort of maximize those reps and in the maybe he gets about a 30% reduction or more. If that's the case, then perhaps a fresher Roy Robertson Harris can help you, and all those things sort of work together. And then Mitch Morse, I thought, was a needed acquisition. Obviously, if you look at the guard and center market, it kind of exploded. So I thought they got a deal with Mitch Morse. I think that he's a good player, and he's somebody that, honestly, Trevor Lawrence needs. I think the center and quarterback connection is fundamental to a quarterback, especially a young quarterback. I think that that's important to have established. And perhaps they did make a mistake with going with a rookie, even though Luke Fortner was a bit older as a rookie, but going with him instead of a veteran, perhaps maybe even, set Trevor and the offensive line back a little bit. So, they're sort of correcting their wrongs. I think they did a solid job with getting some big guys up front.
Demetrius, why do you think the Gabe Davis signing, at least nationally, has been panned a little bit?
Yeah, it's because if you think about it, whenever you hear about the Bills over the last couple of years, you always heard, hey, they need to find their number 2 wide receiver. And guess who the number 2 was with Buffalo? It was Gabe Davis. And there's a reason for that. The inconsistencies, he's not very consistent in terms of catching the football. Even contested catches, I think that I saw somewhere where he was around 50%. Basically, I know that those are 50-50 balls for a reason, but, the 50-50 ball guy is not necessarily supposed to actually be at 50-50. It should be about, 70-30, something like that, if you're an elite player at that position. And the long speed's not necessarily there, but in terms of being able to sort of manipulate routes, sort of get open deep, that is there. So there's some pros and cons to Gabe, and I think that's why at $13 million per year, I understand why people would have some angst. It's sort of like when the Jaguars signed Zay Jones. I know it was less money then, but if you think about it in that way, pretend Zay was having the production that Gabe was, and then the Jags signed him. It's similar to that. And, I feel as though the wide receiver market is what it is. It's only going to keep getting more. Brandon Ayuk's probably going to make $35 million a year, so it's not that much of an egregious move. But I think the combination of the inconsistencies Gabe has and sort of how down people are on him, combined with the fact that the Jaguars lost Calvin Ridley, people see it as a downgrade.
Couple more for Demetrius Harvey of the Florida Times-Union. Demetrius, I know you were at the NFL meetings recently when Doug Peterson, I guess, had a little bit of breaking news from that standpoint in regards to Darnell Savage. I think most people had thought Savage was going to be the Jenkins replacement at safety. Come to find out, at least right now, the Jaguars are envisioning him as more of a nickel, with Antonio Johnson being the Jenkins replacement at safety. What did you make of what the head coach said last week?
Yeah, I wasn't surprised, actually. When they signed Darnell Savage, I knew about him in the sense of I remember him coming out of Maryland and how quick twitch he was, and how people said that he does have that versatility, but mostly everyone was saying he's a safety. He's going to be one of the top safeties in the league. Obviously, playing up high with the Packers just didn't work out, in my opinion, in terms of what you expected out of a first-round pick. He played there 5 years, but sort of wasn't. It was a situation similar to the one that the Bills were in with Gabe Davis, where, the Packers were sitting there looking at their safeties thinking we have to replace both of these guys. And so Savage was expendable. He finds the Jaguars in free agency, and you're sort of thinking, hey, he wasn't that good at safety with the Packers. Perhaps maybe they have a different role for him. So when Doug came out and said nickel or playing that third safety, whatever look, it makes sense. I think that Antonio Johnson's a guy that, they like there at that nickel position, but he's not somebody they wanted on third downs in terms of passing situations. If you remember, Trey Herndon obviously played that role. So, if you think of it like that, they like Antonio in terms of what he can do in the early downs, stopping the run, making tackles. It makes sense that they would view him better at that safety position than a Darnell Savage, who in my opinion is good, closer to the line of scrimmage, not necessarily the most physical tackler out there. I know that Doug mentioned him as a tackler, but that was sort of a criticism of him in Green Bay, but he's a quick twitch player who can definitely cover the slot. And I do think that can pay dividends in Ryan Nielsen's new defense.
Demetrius, I want to get to Trent Baalke as we begin to wrap up. Before we get there, though, when they walked off the field January 7th and they lost that game in Nashville, it's been almost 3 months ago now. Are they better today than they were on January 7th after free agency?
I think so. I think so because they're healthier. I think they're healthier. I think that they've improved in terms of their lines. I think that they've started to improve their secondary. They're starting to do that turnover. I don't think they're better at wide receiver. But overall, I do think that they're a better team, and I think a lot of that has to do with the players that they brought in, and then obviously now just being a little bit further away from the season, more healthy. Devon Hamilton's a perfect example. He missed the first 10 weeks. He had the abscess in his back. It was infected. They had the IV fluids. Honestly, this guy shouldn't have played. So if you think of it like that, this guy's coming back, and you basically have a fresh Devon Hamilton, hopefully, who's better this year than he was last year. So yeah, I do think they're a better team.
Demetrius Harvey of the Florida Times-Union. All right, so this weekend, or I guess it was Friday, Foye Oluokun got a contract extension. And then, you and I, as an example, had a very respectful back and forth in regards to Trent Baalke on social media. I can't say that I had a respectful back and forth with other people on social media about Trent Baalke. And I'm curious because you used to write for a website that was dedicated to the fans. You're now one of us, if you will, right, in the sports media with Jacksonville.com and the Florida Times-Union. But I think you, maybe more than most in the city from a media standpoint, relate to the fans because of your previous employment. Why? And sometimes I get lost in the Twitter thing because I think that's the real world. And you got to remember that probably of every 100 people that are listening to us right now, maybe 20 of them are on Twitter and the other 80 aren't. So that's important to realize. But, man, I mean, Trent Baalke, for some Jaguar fans, can do absolutely no right. I mean, it's amazing. They will find flaw with anything that man does. And I'm curious, what your viewpoint is on that.
Yeah. So if you think from the fan perspective, you got to remember, we can go all the way back. 2020, Trent Baalke comes in, sort of I think he was the director of player personnel underneath Dave Caldwell and Tom Coughlin, or actually I think Coughlin would have been gone by then. So, he was already within this franchise before taking over as the GM. And then all of a sudden they promote from within, which is never going to be a move that people like, especially when you had all those losses right before, and he was a part of at least one of those seasons. So, they sort of hire him, and then Urban Meyer comes in, and the entire roster is abysmal. I mean, it makes sense. You already had the years of Dave Caldwell, who didn't do a great job of keeping a sustainable roster. And so now Trent Baalke comes in, and then the 2021 draft comes, you trade Trevor Lawrence, it's a disaster. Urban Meyer gets fired, and then you retain Trent Baalke after you had already basically maligned his campaign through one season. And so now you're actually projecting forward from the 2022 draft. And so this is where people, in my opinion, this is where the gripes are legitimate, once you get here, because now you have Trayvon Walker, your first pick. That's right now is a solid selection. No one's really going to disparage that anymore. But after that, look at it, Hacker. Devin Lloyd, Luke Fortner, Chad Muma, Snoop Connor, Gregory Jr., Monteric Brown. Legitimately, can you tell me one of those players, perhaps Lloyd is the one, will be here beyond maybe the next 2 or 3 years?
No, I think that's a fair point, and that's what I've said about Baalke. I think draft-wise, he's left a lot to be desired. I would give him maybe a C minus in that regard, because at the end of the day, whether they were number one picks or not, he did draft Trevor and Etienne and Walker, and Campbell looks like a player. We'll see what happens with Cisco. There have been some guys, but by and large, you're right. I just look at Baalke as a guy that inherited a dumpster fire. This organization, this team was awful when Trent Baalke became the GM in 2021. That's actually one of the things I'm doing this week, going position by position from where we were in 21 to where we are now. And I just hope people realize that it hasn't all been terrible, right? I mean, you compare Trent Baalke to Dave Caldwell, that's laughable. I mean, Trent Baalke does laps around Dave Caldwell. Trent Baalke and Gene Smith, again, it's laughable. Baalke to me does laps around Gene Smith. Whether people like it or not, at least to me, Demetrius, Baalke's the best GM this franchise has had in the last 15 plus years.
Yeah, and if you do want to use that bar, and I think that it's fine and it's reasonable to sort of compare it to the past of this franchise. But to me, I think that a lot of people, especially on Twitter, who these guys are diehard fans. These guys are so involved that they know moves before some media know moves, just because of how involved they are with this. So they see what other teams are doing around the league. They look at the Bears, they look at the Packers, they look at these teams who have gone through sort of like tough times and then quickly seems to rebuild. Now, I know the jury's still out on Chicago, but that team does look like something where, in the next few years, you're going to be talking about them a lot. And I think that what they're concerned with is, with the Jaguars, they don't see that necessarily. They see a team that invested a lot in free agency and then had to double dip and do it again a few years later after, basically they came out and said that it's built without using those actual words. So I understand where you're coming from in terms of the past regimes with the Jaguars. Absolutely, I do think that Trent Baalke has done a good job, a better job than those regimes at getting this team to shape and look like a real NFL team. For so many years, everyone in Jacksonville was like, I just want to look like a real team. I don't want to turn on Fox and see the NFC teams go in at the same time as the Jaguars and think, wow, that's a real football, even though it's just, the the Chicago Bears playing. I think that right now they're at the point where they feel like this franchise should be a Super Bowl contender. They have the quarterback, they have the coach. Why aren't they there yet? And so that's where the frustration's coming. And I think that you're right. In terms of free agency, he's done a pretty solid job. But when it comes to the draft and that's building the foundation of your team, that's where people are scared. And, the next few years sort of look a little leery if you want to project forward.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And I think that's why you see Trent Baalke go out and sign 3 30-plus-year-old free agents in Ronald Darby, Mitch Morse, and Eric Armstead. To me, Demetrius, that screams of a GM that probably knows he needs to win this year. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. I think there's no question the Jaguars must win this year. Sean Collin kind of put it out there. He said they have the right DNA. Like he thinks they cracked the code, right? You can't make that guy look silly. And so I do think that this is a must-win year. I mean, every year is, but this is definitely the must-win year. You got Trevor, who's probably going to be in the first year of his new contract, or just within the last year of his rookie deal. And you're going to be playing, and I do think that this is going to be the year that they have to make the playoffs. They have to do well.
Demetrius, 60 seconds. We're going a little long here. Hopefully we'll have you on maybe right before the draft or certainly right after. Quickly, is it wide receiver, DB, wide receiver, round 1, round 2? I know you did your first mock today on Jacksonville.com. Do you see those as the 2 positions they're going to hit early in the draft?
Yeah, I think so, and I think I said it in the mock. I kept going back and forth between corner or wide receiver, and depending on who's there, I think that's going to be the pick. It just depends if the top 2 corners are gone, and that's Mitchell and Arnold. Then I think that they could go wide receiver. That's Thomas or A.D. Mitchell, or even maybe a Worthy, out of Texas as well. I think that he's a pretty good player. I think that he's a guy that the Jaguars like and would need. So, it could go either direction. And I think that those are the two positions.
I totally agree. Wide receiver and DB. My one caveat, and I don't think he's going to be there at 17, but more and more mock drafts, Demetrius, have Jared Verse going after Jacksonville. And I'm just salivating at the idea of Josh Allen, Trayvon Walker, Eric Armstead, and Jared Verse. If Verse is there at 17, man, I'm thinking about that. But aside from him, wide receiver or DB, that's the position everybody's going. Demetrius just put his first mock draft out today. You can check that out over at the Florida Times-Union and at Jacksonville.com. Demetrius, I know you're busy, man. Thank you again, as always. We'll talk again in a couple of weeks.
I appreciate it.
There you go, Demetrius Harvey of the Florida Times-Union here with us on Hacker After Dark. And I thought that was an interesting perspective, right? Whether you like Trent Baalke, whether you don't, I think we can all agree the drafts have not been good. The drafts have probably been below average, and he's done fairly above average in free agency. What does that equal? Well, it equals back-to-back 9 and 8 seasons. But as I've said, man, you signed 3 30-year-old plus free agents. Ronald Darby, Eric Armstead, and Mitch Morse. To me, that screams a GM that probably knows he needs to win this year. You don't see a lot of teams go 3 30-year-old plus free agents and give decent money to all 3 of them. That's not a rebuild. That's not a reload. That is a fine-tuning, if you will, of a roster that believes they're ready, and they probably need to be ready, or else heads may roll after the 2024 season. LSU and Iowa, we very rarely talk women's college basketball, but this is the biggest game right now going on probably in the sports world. Caitlin Clark, man, if you haven't seen this girl play for the Iowa Hawkeyes, first of all, you've been living under a rock probably. She's been on TV constantly for the last couple of years. She's hit 7 threes tonight, has 31 points to go with 7 assists and 4 rebounds, and there's still 13 minutes of game left to play. Iowa is up 11. Remember, this is a rematch from the national title game. LSU beat Iowa last year. You'll probably remember Angel Reese of LSU getting pretty much in Caitlin Clark's face, right, doing the pointing to the ring finger, talking trash essentially to Caitlin Clark. Boy, Iowa looks like they might be getting some revenge tonight. Iowa up 13 now, 65-52 late in the third quarter, and we will certainly keep you updated on that. Coming up next, more football, a little UFL, and a little talk about March Madness, including some big props to my guy Dylan Denmark. That's next on a Monday night edition of Hacker After Dark.
And now, the starting lineup.
The Drill Mornings. Jaguars today, 10 to noon. Helmets and heels. Noon to 2. XL primetime, 2 to 4. The Frangie Show, 4 to 6. Into the night with Rick Ballou and Hacker After Dark. Evenings on 1010 XL.
How's Wingstop sound? Crispy, juicy, classic wings. Made to order, cooked to perfection. And sauced and tossed in those 11 soul-satisfying flavors. Paired with hand-cut seasoned fries, house-made honey mustard, blue cheese, or signature Wingstop ranch. And, of course, spicy Cajun fried corn. I think you've heard enough. Get your flavor delivered at wingstop.com.
Doc Rooter is a full-service plumbing company that's locally owned and operated, fully licensed and insured. We'll be at your home in a timely manner, provide honest pricing, and ensure the job is completed correctly, or we'll make it right. Doc Rooter can handle all plumbing jobs, including repairing broken pipes, clearing clogged drains, to installing new fixtures, water heaters, garbage disposals, and full repipes for older homes. If you're stuck, call the Duck, 904-862-6769. That's 904-862-6769.
Some say it's the greatest golf tournament in Jacksonville, the Coastal Equipment Guggen Open.
I'm giving you a standing ovation.
April 15th at Hidden Hills Golf Club. Enjoy a Chick-fil-A breakfast and a Dandy Foods lunch. Score a hole-in-one and you could win $500 cash from Lucas Honda.
What do you think? I'm impressed.
You could also win a Bernie Grill from StoneCore.
Thanks to our sponsors,
Southeast Orthopedic Specialists and 3D Digital.
Listen to the drill for your way in on 1010XL.
I can do that.
Attention veterans, if you have a VA loan, you need to listen to this, especially if your current rate is higher than 6.5%. Now is the time to take advantage of the federal government's VA Streamlined Refinance Program. With my friends at Loan Pronto, you can. Go to loanpronto.com. Prosser here, and Loan Pronto has fixed rate APRs in the 5s. You can drop your rate now. Lower your payment with no income documentation and no appraisal. Do it at loanpronto.com. Their all-digital platform makes it easy. They can even cover your closing costs. If you need cash now, Loan Pronto can get you up to 100% of your home value. You can pay off all your credit cards or other debt and save as much as $1,000 a month. Call Loan Pronto now at 904-999-1508 or get a 30-second rate quote at loanpronto.com. Ask about streamlined VA loans, no income doc, and no appraisal. Loan Pronto, 999-1508 or loanpronto.com. Equal housing lender, NMLS 1661781, subject to lender approval.
Hello. Every great call comes to you on the All-Pro Roofing phone line.
Just pick up your telephone and dial.
Listen for great phone interviews all day on the All-Pro Roofing phone line.
We'll talk on the phone.
On 1010XL.
Golf is as popular as it's ever been, and Hidden Hills welcomes all who love this game as much as we do. You'll surely enjoy our Arnold Palmer design, which is nestled in one of the highest elevations in North Florida. Book your tee time today, and you'll be glad you did.
It's March basketball. That means a host of top teams will be competing for the NCAA title. When it comes to commercial painters, there's also some healthy competition out there. Jason Parker with Performance Painting. To help you know the right questions to ask any painter competing for your business this year, visit performancepaintingjacks.com. Or if you're ready for a friendly quote, give us a call and ask about our free pressure wash promotion for your next project. Performance Painting, quality coatings applied with pride.
Performance Painting.
It's Kubota Orange Days, your golden chance to score a deal that will make your neighbors green with envy. Shop the year's best selection of Kubota tractors, zero-turn mowers, and utility vehicles, including the #1 selling compact tractor in the USA. And get the year's best deals, like 0% APR for 84 months, or up to $3,300 off L3302 tractors. Coastal Equipment on New Kings Road and in McClenny.
Coastal Equipment.
Hey folks, Hicken here for Zero Res. If you're like me, you're getting the itch to do some deep cleaning. Problem is, most of us hate throwing things away. Man, I just close my eyes and let my wife do it. And we always call Zero Res for our floors. We'll have the Zero Res crew clean all the flooring because this month, gang, all flooring 25% off. That's right, 25% off carpets, tile and grout, wooden vinyl floors, and area rugs. Great time to get all the floors clean. Zero Res, man. Spell it forwards or backwards. Zero Res. It's the right way to clean.
Zero Res.
Wondering what you're going to do for dinner tonight?
Southern Steer Butcher is a full-service butcher, and we grind and make sausage in-house every day.
Now open in Ortega. For tasty tips and juicy breasts, choose Southern Steer Butcher.
1010XL is presented by Farah and Farah, exclusive injury law firm of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Protecting you and your family. Call 396-5555. Jacksonville. Hacker After Dark on 1010XL.
Back into the world of the National Football League. Less than 15 minutes away, Luke Easterling, Athlon Sports. Now that free agency is all but in the rearview mirror for the Jaguars, what does it mean as far as the Jaguar draft outlook? And certainly want to spend some time wide receiver-wise with Luke, talking about the guys that could potentially be available at 17 and at the Jaguar selection in round 2. Same thing with defensive back. Again, those are probably the two biggest positions when you say, all right, who are the Jaguars going to draft? A lot of people say wide receiver. A lot of people say corner. So we're going to spend a lot of time with Luke Easterling on those two in particular of Athlon Sports. He's coming up in less than 15 minutes. There is a Final Four that is set that'll take place in Glendale, Arizona. Two teams that everybody pretty much expected to be there, UConn and Purdue. UConn has absolutely beat the crap out of everybody they have played. Remember, they won the title last year. They're trying to become the first team since Florida, since Horford and Noah and Brewer and Green to repeat. So, Gator fans, you have a vested interest in UConn losing, although I don't know if UConn's going to lose. They have been a machine through the first 4 games of this tournament. And Purdue, first time since 1980 that they're in the Final Four. And, man, they've had some really good teams. They're following the Virginia blueprint. Remember Virginia losing to a 16 seed? They were the first one to lose to a 16. All they did was come back the following year and win the title. Purdue's trying to do something similar, right? Lose to a 16 seed last year, come back a year later, and win the title. Those two appear to be on a collision course. UConn has to get by Alabama. More on them in a moment. Purdue has to get by North Carolina State. And North Carolina State, to me, has Kemba Walker UConn vibes. Remember Kemba Walker's UConn team that had to win 5 games in the Big East tournament just to get in to the NCAA tournament, and then they used that 5-game winning streak to go all the way to win a national championship. They won, I believe, 11 games in a row to win the title. NC State, the same thing. NC State had to win, 4 games in the ACC tournament just to get into this thing. Now, they got lucky, right? They beat New Mexico in round 1. They did not have to play Kentucky. They got to play Oakland instead of Kentucky, which helps. But nevertheless, NC State's won 8 games in a row to now get to this point. Their first Final Four in decades as well. So an interesting collection of teams. I got to give props to Dylan Denmark. Denmark, to my knowledge, again, people I've talked to, you are the only person, you and your vast college basketball knowledge in there.
Oh, yeah.
You're the only person, truthfully, I mean this, that had Alabama in the Final Four.
Yeah, I was lucky guess. Like I said, I kind of like to pick a team that I know that has a chance to get hot, and I kind of rode Bama just because I knew that they are one of the highest scoring teams in the country when they get rolling, and I kind of rode that. And I mean, have you seen the spreads for this weekend? Talking about the games this weekend,
I imagine they're probably considerable.
UConn is 11.5-point favorite over Bama.
Wow. And
Purdue is a 9.5-point favorite over NC State.
Oh, I think it would be pretty surprising, if not borderline shocking, if you did not see Purdue and UConn matching up in the national championship game. And truthfully, that's probably the game that most want to see.
Yeah, without doubt.
Although, my man, is it Burns for NC State?
Mm-hmm.
This guy is the star of the tournament. He reminds me of like Dimitri Hill. That was before your time. But Florida had a big body center that people loved named Dimitri Hill. We called him Demit Hook. Burns is probably a better player than Dimitri Hill. No
you know
offense.
what he is?
Yeah.
He's Zach Randolph from the Grizzlies. His body with Shaq's personality. I heard somebody say that.
I
was
like that.
That is exactly what he is.
Apparently, I was listening to Primetime, my best friend Matt Hayes at the station. Love you, Matt. And they were talking about NFL execs are considering looking at this guy from a football standpoint because of his size, quick feet, etc. If it doesn't work out for him in the NBA. And Purdue, it goes to show you where the NBA is right now. This Zach Edey guy has been the most dominant player in the tournament. Denmark, that guy's not going to do anything in the NBA.
No, I was thinking about that.
He's going to be
dude
awful.
Can't shoot outside of 6 feet. But, I mean, there's got to be a place for him somewhere.
They're probably, you know who he is? He's a taller Tyler Hansborough.
Yeah.
Remember how great Tyler Hansborough was in North Carolina?
Oh, yeah.
National Player of the Year. He gets drafted in round 1. Tyler Hansborough was out of the league in 5 years. This Zach Edey guy, and it's nothing against him necessarily. It's the type of game that he plays. How many 7-footers in the NBA do you see that can't make a jump shot? You don't see any.
There's nobody in the NBA, period, that can't make it outside of the paint.
Right. I mean, my Orlando Magic, my beloved Orlando Magic, have 3 centers on their team. Mo Wagner, Goga Batadze, Wendell Carter. All 3 of them can shoot behind the arc. You almost have to in today's day and age. So I love Zach Edey's college game. I just don't think that's going to translate to the league. But there is no doubt he's been dominant, and that was a lot of fun watching them against Tennessee. And as far as Alabama goes, Sears is phenomenal, the point guard. But it goes to show you how funny college basketball is. Florida should have beat Alabama 3 times. They beat them twice, and they beat the brakes off of them twice. One of which was just a couple of weeks ago. It's the last game Alabama lost, as a matter of fact, in the SEC tournament. And since that loss, Alabama has found themselves now in the Final Four, just getting hot at the right time, getting a couple of breaks here and there, which is what Alabama did. Remember, they played a 13 seed in Charleston. They played a 12 seed in Grand Canyon to get to the Sweet 16. And then kudos to them to knock off North Carolina and knock off Clemson to get to where they're at. So the Final Four will be fun. Again, I would be shocked if it's not UConn and Purdue. I had Purdue winning it all at the beginning. I'll stick with that. But it's hard because UConn, man, they have looked like an unstoppable force so far through the first 4 games of the NCAA tournament. Iowa and LSU. We're getting serious now. About 9 minutes to go in the ball game. Iowa up 8, 69-61. Again, looking to avenge the loss in the women's national championship game last year. Caitlin Clark of Iowa is unbelievably fun to watch. At last check, she had 7 3-pointers. Let me pull up the stats here so far for Caitlin Clark in case I missed any. Yep, still at 7, 31 points, 8 assists, 4 rebounds. Iowa holding on to an 8-point lead. We will keep you updated. We're at halftime. Hacker After Dark. 1 hour down, 1 hour to go. We'll take you up till 10 o'clock tonight here on 1010XL and on 92.5 FM. Let's talk Jaguar draft. Let's talk Jaguar draft outlook. And let's focus at wide receiver and at corner. Luke Easterling does a great job covering the draft. Has done so for years. For Athlon Sports, he's next. Hacker After Dark on a Monday night in Jacksonville, Florida, right here on 1010XL and 92.5 FM.
After the workday, Rick Ballou goes to work.
Did you see him really working it there? That was something special.
With more Jags and the stories that are buzzing. Go into the night with Rick Ballou. Then it's Hacker After Dark. Evenings on 1010XL.
Without the ones like you, who work tirelessly to keep things running, everything would suddenly stop. Hospitals, factories, schools, and power plants, they all depend on you. No matter the weather, emergency, or time of day, you're the ones who get it done. At Grainger, we're here for you with professional-grade industrial supplies. Count on real-time product availability and fast delivery. Call, clickgrainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Hey everybody, Jennifer Marion with Randy Marion Cadillac in Jacksonville here to say hello, and we'd sure like to have your business.
You know what? They're going to love the king of price.
My dad believes in making great deals and having a great selection in stock.
Cadillac XT4s, XT5s, and XT6s, and Escalades.
The all-electric Cadillac Lyriq.
CT4s and CT5s.
Cadillac luxury and selection is just waiting for you.
At Randy Marion Cadillac, Southside Boulevard, Jacksonville.
And don't forget, tell them Jennifer sent ya.
Hello, First Coast. I'm sure by now you have seen our bright green GFL trucks and containers throughout the greater Jacksonville area. We're an industry leader in solid waste and would love the opportunity to earn your business. We're committed to customer service, reliability, and have an unwavering focus on safety. Whether commercial or construction, let us haul your waste away. Call 904-760-5880 to get a quote today. From GFL, Green for Life.
The Guess Who? Rockin' Jacksonville, Thursday, April 11th. Catch the Canadian Hitmakers live at Florida Theater. Rock legends The Guess Who's long-awaited return to Jacksonville. Get your tickets now at Florida Theater box office or floridatheater.com. Don't miss a night of legendary rock classics with The Guess Who. Thursday, April 11th at Florida Theater. Produced by Elko Concerts.
Hi, this is Dave Barker. Want to grow your hair back?
IHRS, right here in Jacksonville, is the only hair transplant clinic in the Southeast to offer multi-unit hair grafting and the 45-minute PRP treatments. Grow your hair back. Call now for a free in-person evaluation. 904-777-IHRS, 904-777-4477, or visit hairforme.com.
Home of the Jacksonville Jaguars. WJXL AM Jacksonville Beach. WJXL FM Jacksonville Beach.
Hold on tight because All Pro Roofing is unleashing some electrifying news. Brace yourselves for instant excitement. Instant roof quotes are here. Simply surf over to their website and hit the Instant Roof Quote tab. Boom! That's your ticket to a lightning-fast estimate. Head over to allproroofingllc.com. Click that Instant Roof Quote tab. What are you waiting for? Click on the Instant Roof Quote tab today at allproroofingllc.com.
License number CCC 1327056.
CDC 060138.
This is former NFL quarterback David Garrard. If your knees have taken a beating and you're finally ready to do something about it, then let Southeast Orthopedic take a look. Come on, do your knees a favor.
Southeast Orthopedic Specialists.
David Garrard here. I've had the PRP treatment from Southeast Orthopedic Specialists, and my knees are really doing well. Platelet-rich plasma treatment may be the answer for whatever is hurting you.
Southeast Orthopedic Specialists.
Dave Binion here with my son Ammon, who is the air duct cleaning manager at Zero Res. So Ammon, you may notice a little rattle in my voice and some puffiness in my eyes. That's because allergy season is coming on. Can Zero Res help?
Yes, your health has a lot to do with the air you breathe. A clean and healthy home begins with clean air. At Zero Res, we can help clean the air in your home by cleaning your air ducts, cleaning the coils in your HVAC units, and fogging the system with a powerful antimicrobial that helps kill and control the growth of microorganisms in your air. We also have options for maintaining your clean air with our excellent inline air purifier and UV lights that will help keep your system clean and healthy. At Zero Res, we are more than just air duct cleaners. We're a clean air specialist.
Have Zero Res air duct specialists out, and right now we'll give you $50 off your air duct cleaning, and while we're at it, we'll give you $50 off your dryer vent cleaning. Zero Res.
Spelled forward or backwards, it's the right way to clean.
CEROREC. Zero Res.
1010XL is presented by Farah and Farah, exclusive injury law firm of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Protecting you and your family. Call 396-5555. Jacksonville. Let's ring up another guest on the All-Pro Roofing phone line.
Back here on 1010XL and 92.5 FM in the city of Jacksonville. We are glad you are with us. Free agency pretty much in the rearview mirror. The Jaguars are one of the most active teams in free agency. A lot of guys coming in, certainly some guys departing, including Calvin Ridley. And what does all that mean for the NFL draft now that is officially less than 1 month away? Luke Easterling of Athlon Sports always does a terrific job covering the NFL and the NFL draft, and he's kind enough to join us here on 1010XL in Jacksonville. Luke, how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great, Ryan. How are you, man?
Hey, Luke, we're good, man. Thank you for the time. I know it's a very busy time of year for you. And this time of year that free agency starts winding down, obviously all eyes turn to the draft. Luke, how does free agency affect what you guys do in covering the NFL draft?
I mean, it has a huge impact on it, right? I mean, the best NFL teams know that you want to go into free agency and fill your biggest needs as best as you can with veteran guys who have experience to give you kind of an improved floor at those positions, right? Where you know you can plug in guys who can play on Sunday and basically prevent you from having to reach to fill those positions early in the draft, right? You don't want to go into the draft saying, wow, we really whiffed, on free agents at this one position. That means we've got to take that position within the first 2 or 3 rounds. And the board might not fall that way. You don't want to put yourself in a position where you're passing up better players at other positions because you simply just have to get somebody to improve a position that you weren't able to improve in free agency. So from that perspective, I think the Jaguars, if you look at the moves that they made, I think that they attacked that as best they could, right? They looked and they saw, a hole along the interior of the offensive line. They bring in Mitch Morse, a guy who has a ton of experience and played at a really high level in Buffalo. Obviously, they lose Calvin Ridley. They bring in Gabe Davis, who's been a big play guy. I don't think he replaces what you're losing in Calvin Ridley, which is why I think that'll still be a high priority in the draft. And part of that is due to the fact that this draft class is so loaded at receiver. But even on defense, Eric Armstead, I thought was a huge addition for them. Even some of the smaller ones, Ronald Darby, Darnell Savage, guys that you're plugging into the starting lineup that can give you a certain level of production and expectation, so that when you go into the draft, depending on how the board falls, you can follow the talent and follow the value at any number of positions instead of feeling like you have to reach for a specific one. So from that perspective, I think the Jaguars did a pretty solid job getting somebody in every spot that they really needed. I think that the kind of dark horse, the elephant in the room, I think is the edge defender situation, depending on what happens with Josh Allen. If they're not able to retain him, and have a contract standoff or what have you off the franchise tag, that would be a big hole that they'd need to fill. But otherwise, they did a pretty solid job.
Luke Easterling of Athlon Sports. Luke, you and I talked a little over a month ago, and at that time, it was interior offensive line, interior defensive line. Let's begin there. Do you feel the addition of Mitch Morse and the re-signing of Ezra Cleveland, does that take interior O-line off the board for the Jaguars in round 1, in your opinion?
Probably in round 1, I think it does. I think long term they would still like to bolster the depth there and have some upside that could challenge those guys. But I think first round it really points you to the premium positions. I think corner and receiver, again, assuming that Josh Allen's situation works out and that he's back and they have both him and Trayvon Walker on the edges. I really think that not just the need long term over the next 3 to 5 years, but the depth of the class itself, the talent that's likely to be on the board, assuming that the Jags stay at 17 where they are now. I think that points them to receiver, and it points them to corner, 2 of the increasingly premium positions in today's league.
Luke Easterling of Athlon Sports. I agree with you, wide receiver and corner, and we'll get more focus on those in a moment. You mentioned Josh Allen, and for the life of me, I can't imagine Trent Baalke is going to allow that to happen. They're going to have to figure out a way to get something done there, or there will be problems here in Duval County, I can assure you, with the thoughts of Trent Baalke towards the fan base. So let's assume that Josh Allen does get done, whether it's today, tomorrow, or sometime, prior to July 15th. My thought is, Luke, I love Josh Allen, Trayvon Walker, Eric Armstead, as you mentioned, but man alive, I'm seeing a lot of mocks with like Jared Verse just sitting there at 17. And if Jared Verse is sitting there at 17, boy, don't you have to consider that, even though you got a pretty good threesome there on the D-line with Armstead, Walker, and Allen?
Well, I think if that's the scenario that you end up in, that's where you try to convince yourself that the versatility of Trayvon Walker allows you to take a guy like Verse because of all the different things you can do with Walker along that entire defensive front. And so because you can slide him inside if you want to and he can still win, I don't know if you'd want to do that full time, but like you said, a guy like Verse who is so polished, so ready to make an impact at the pro game. He's such a well-rounded guy. He can win with speed, he can win with power. He can defend the run. He can set a strong edge there and not just be a one-dimensional defender there on the edge. I think all of those things that's why you drafted a guy like Walker, right? Because of the upside, the versatility, the athleticism he brings, and the way he can line up anywhere on the defensive front. So I think in that scenario, if you're saying, hey, Jared Verse is the best available player on the board, regardless of position, let's see if we can't use Trayvon Walker's versatility to our advantage and just get the best 4 guys on the field. I would have a hard time, arguing against the fact that Josh Allen, Trayvon Walker, Eric Armstead, and Jared Verse wouldn't be the best 4 guys you could run out there.
Man, that's quite a thought if the Jaguars would do that. Now everybody is pointing towards a wide receiver and DB, and let's go there next. Doug Peterson in Orlando earlier this week made some news saying that Darnell Savage, the safety they brought in from Green Bay, is going to be looked at more as a nickel here in Jacksonville, and that was big because the thought was, Luke, the Jaguars were going to look at corner in a big way in round 1. Well, all of a sudden, if you consider Darnell Savage as your nickel corner, now you got Tyson Campbell, Ronald Darby, and Darnell Savage. Does that maybe take corner down a peg, at least when it comes to pick 17?
I don't think so, and part of it is looking beyond this season. I think Ronald Darby is a solid signing for now, but I think you've got to look long term. Who are you going to pair Campbell with on the outside beyond this season? And I think the best teams that know how to build through the draft have to look 3 years down the line, 5 years down the line, and say what's best for our team, not just this season but beyond. And again, this applies to the offensive line as well with signings like Morse. I think again the corner class is going to give them so much value there at 17. I think we could get to 17 and only have 1, maybe 2 corners off the board. So you're talking about Nate Wiggins from Clemson, Kool-Aid McKinstry from Alabama. I think probably, Quinyon Mitchell and Terrion Arnold are probably off the board by then. But Cooper DeJean from Iowa, you want to talk about a versatile guy that can line up anywhere. I think there's going to be too much talent there. And again, if you look beyond this season, I think they'd really like to pair a younger player with Campbell on the outside for the future and not just this season.
If Arnold and Mitchell are gone, and I tend to agree with you, who do you have as the third corner?
I think it's going to depend on fit. I think if a team needs a versatile guy, that again, a guy like Cooper DeJean who can play on the outside, but he's really better as like a do-it-all rover kind of guy who can play inside in the slot. He lined up at linebacker sometimes for Iowa. They moved him all over the place, but he can play deep at safety. And so if you want more of a versatile, can line up anywhere kind of guy, you take Cooper DeJean. If you want just the outside traditional corner who's going to stay on the outside and lock down his side of the field, I think it's probably Nate Wiggins from Clemson, who, again, a little bit light, but I believe he put on a little bit of weight for his pro day and still ran really fast. So, again, a guy with great ball skills, elite speed for the position, and he's tall. He's not big. You could, again, hopefully add a little bit more weight there and make sure he can hold up. But Wiggins, again, with that kind of speed, those kind of instincts and ball skills that he shows on film, I think he could easily be that third corner off the board if you don't need the versatility that DeJean brings.
A couple of more for Luke Easterling of Athlon Sports, talking NFL Draft with us here on 1010XL in Jacksonville. That brings me to wide receiver. And, Luke, a month ago, I told you Jackson Powers Johnson was the very popular name here, the center from Oregon. He has been replaced by Brian Thomas, the wide receiver from LSU. My question to you, twofold. Talk about Thomas, and will he be there at 17?
Yeah, I think that's a big question mark because you've got obviously the top 3 receivers in this draft are all elite guys, right? You could make an argument that those 3 receivers are 3 of the top 5 overall players in this draft, talking about Marvin Harrison Jr., Malik Neighbors, and Rome Odunze. So, those guys could all be gone by 6. We could see 3-4 quarterbacks and then 3 or 4 receivers off the board in the first 6 or 7 picks. And then the next, that drop off is significant, I think, but it's not about talent in the second tier. I think there's a ton of talent in that second tier. I think the difficulty for teams is going to be how much better is the 4th receiver on their board than the 10th receiver on their board. And I really don't think there's a lot separating those guys. We could, Brian Thomas Jr. I think is the top of that tier to me, because of his size and his speed and his production. I think there's a ton of upside there. But, if you look at the rest of that group, A.D. Mitchell and Xavier Worthy from Texas, even Ladd McConkey from Georgia, Keon Coleman from Florida State. There's so many guys in that second tier of receivers that you could convince yourself, if you're picking to give you a scenario that as to why Thomas could still be on the board at 17 despite those numbers, it just could be a matter of all those teams, after those top 3 receivers are off the board, those next 10 picks or so, if anybody needs a receiver, are they going to be able to convince themselves, hey, I could take Brian Thomas Jr. here, or I could get a guy who's very, very comparable in terms of value on our board with our second round pick. And so it can free me up to take, a tackle or something else that we need. So I think that's the scenario that could leave Thomas on the board for them. If he is still there, I think it's an easy pick. You could make some skill set comparisons to what they signed in Gabe Davis, but I just don't think he brings the consistency. And I think there's a ton more upside again with Thomas. So if he's gone, again, you're talking about there's still plenty of speed if you want either of those Texas guys, Worthy or Mitchell, and there's still plenty to be had there. But Thomas I think would be the real prize there at 17 if they want to go receiver.
So it sounds like, not to put words in your mouth, but if it were you would probably, if your needs are wide receiver and DB, you would go DB at 17, and then you'll find a receiver at 49 in the second round.
It's possible. I mean, yes and no. I think in the Jags position, if Thomas is there, I really like him so much that if no receiver has come off the board between that top 10 and 17 and you're able to get Thomas, I really feel confident in him as the fourth best receiver. And I think if everybody else kind of takes a pass and says, and plays it that way, right, where they, hey, I can wait till the second round, then you kind of have to flip the other way and be like, okay, well, if everybody else is going to wait, I'm going to take advantage and get value at this position with a guy who probably should be a top 15 pick, and in any other class might be top 10 with that size speed ratio that he has. And I'm going to get him at 17 because they pushed him down the board. And part of that is because there's going to be a huge run on those receivers that the Jags might completely miss out on by the time they get around to the late 40s, right? So, I mean, if you look at the top of the second round, you've got Carolina, you've got New England, you've got Tennessee, you've got so many teams in that, maybe Indy if they want somebody else to pair with Michael Pittman Jr. and the rest of that young core. There's so many teams picking in that from 18 right after the Jaguars pick in the first round to the time they come back up on the board. Those next 6 to 8 receivers could all be gone by the time they pick. And so I think that might contribute to them feeling like if no receiver has come off the board after those top 3 and they get a chance to get Thomas, they better get their guy there, because there could easily be, again, 6 to 8 guys taken out of that class before they come up on the clock again.
Final moments with Luke Easterling of Athlon Sports. Luke, locally, people love Ricky Pearsall and people love Keon Coleman, the Seminole and Gator fans here. Your thoughts on both Pearsall and Coleman, and could potentially either guy still be there at 49?
Yeah, I think Pearsall is probably the guy that's more likely to be there at 49. Wouldn't necessarily shock me if Coleman makes it that far. But again, I think two very different guys who, Coleman obviously big, physical, 6'4", 215, plays faster than his time speed. I know the 40-yard dash is one thing, but if you look at his kind of analytic numbers, the speed that he's moving at when he's actually playing football, he's so much faster on the field than he was at the combine. And so again, you're getting a red zone guy who can outleap anybody. Great at the catch point in those 50-50 balls, those contested catches, plays with a lot of physicality, knows how to use his size. So that's the type of guy that you're getting there. And Pearsall he does everything so well. He's so polished. He can line up outside. He can line up in the slot. He's tough. He'll go over the middle and make those tough catches. I know everybody's seen that one-hander that'll live in Gator history forever. But he's such a sharp route runner, reliable hands, really smart player. And I think, again, he does everything at such a high level that somebody's going to fall in love with him. Again, it's the depth of receiver class. Normally a guy like him would be a second-round lock. But the depth of this class could push him towards the end of that second round, beginning of the third round. And I think that whoever ends up with him is going to be very, very happy, because I think he's a guy that can make an immediate impact because he can do everything at such a high level.
Luke, final question, man. Again, thank you. I know you're very busy this time of year. As far as guys give me one guy that you have really climbing in the last couple of weeks, maybe since the combine, and one guy maybe that's in a little bit of a free fall right now.
I think the guy that I have the highest in terms of the combine and what it did, I think it really solidified Dallas Turner from Alabama as the best defensive prospect in this draft. I think when you go out as an edge defender at 6'4", 250 plus, and you're running in the 4.4s and you're doing the things in the agility drills that he did, I think he's probably the only defensive player that goes in the top 10. I think Atlanta at 8 makes a lot of sense for him. If he's not going there, he probably goes to Chicago at 9. But I think he might be the easy pick to be the first defender off the board. And especially after that combine, I think he solidified himself in that spot. And I'm not, I'm trying to rack my brain for somebody that maybe Audric Estime, the running back from Notre Dame, didn't have a great combine. And I think if teams are looking for a reason to disqualify a guy in the running back class, maybe that's him. But I thought he had a much better pro day, the Notre Dame running back. I think he's a tough, powerful guy. So, if teams do kind of push him down the board because he ran slow at the combine, I think they're going to regret that because he's a guy that, again, the running back class is very interesting. Really, the top 8 to 10 guys could go in any order. I think Trey Benson's probably the top guy in that group. But Estime is a guy who, if he falls because he didn't run as fast as expected, I think he's a guy that will make teams regret letting him stay on the board until the 4th round if that happens, because he's just such a tough, instinctive runner.
Luke, tell the good folks here in Jacksonville, man. I know Athlon Sports, you guys put the draft guide out. You were a big part of that. Where can people get their hands on it?
Yeah, I mean, you can find that anywhere you find your magazines, your grocery stores, your Barnes & Nobles, your bookstores, anywhere. That's out. Definitely had a lot of fun putting that together. But we've got a lot of that content going up on the Athlon Sports website as well. So come over to athlonsports.com. We'll have the mock drafts, the scouting reports, all the news, breaking down everything, all the rumors heading up. Everybody knows that the rumor mill is going to start churning over the next few weeks here as we lead into the draft, and it's going to be pretty crazy, but we'll have it all covered for you there at athlonsports.com.
He's one of the best when it comes to draft coverage. Luke Easterling, Athlon Sports, and he's always kind enough to give us some time here on 1010XL in Jacksonville. Luke, thank you as always. Let's do it again after the draft, and we'll see where the dust is settled with the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Hey, sounds great, man. Always a good time.
You can find 1010XL on any social media platform: Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. At 1010XL.
Rick Ballou for Carlson Dental. I've been telling you this for quite some time because it's true. I hate going to the dentist, or at least I used to hate going to the dentist. I had total anxiety, and then I tried sedation. Light sedation for cleaning and deep sedation as well for cavities and root canals. Folks, it's an incredible experience. So don't be nervous. Don't be scared. Go to carlsondentalgroup.com. That's carlsondentalgroup.com for all of your dental needs.
ET here, and it's time for the Taste of Golf at TPC Sawgrass, April 24th. Join me for fine cuisine from chefs from the top golf clubs in our area, craft cocktails, games, and unique auction items. This is one of the most charitable events in our area. Come network with a sophisticated audience who is passionate about golf and its values, all impacting the youth in our community. All proceeds benefit First Tee North Florida. For tickets, go to tasteofgolf.com. Come on, somebody.
I'm here with Danny Van Sickle, director of the Electrical Training Alliance. Danny, tell me about your program.
Hey, Rick, we're a 5-year electrical apprenticeship. Our students start out making over $40,000 a year, and right now graduate making over $90,000 a year, including benefits. There is no tuition or no student debt. You just have to apply and get accepted.
Did you say no tuition and no student debt?
You heard that right, Rick. Once you're accepted to the program, your only cost are the books and the course fees, about $800 a year.
That sounds like an amazing opportunity. How can I learn more?
Just go to etajax.org, and you can apply there.
Apply by May 23rd.
It's Taylor Dahl from Helmets and Heels. I've got to tell you about an amazing experience I had recently. I'm moving, which most of you know can be a very stressful time. I had to get my carpets cleaned, so of course I called up Zero Res, and let me tell you, they did not disappoint. Zero Res came in and worked their magic, leaving my carpets looking brand new. If you want impeccable service and a great deal, it saved me time, made my move a bit easier, and was less than if I took that apartment cleaning fee. Zero Res, spelled backward or forwards, is the right way to clean.
Rick Ballou, weeknights on 1010XL.
Hacker here. There was a time when negative comments on social media about my weight just faded into the background. I got so used to seeing them. However, in just 5 weeks, everything has taken a 180. I now notice comments about my weight again because they're completely different. Thanks to dropping a whopping 40 pounds already with Awaken 180. People are noticing and rooting me on. It feels absolutely incredible. I'm diving back into clothes I haven't worn in 15 years, turning back time while losing 5 pounds a week, thanks to Awaken 180 weight loss. I have a whole new outlook on life. I've been down other weight loss roads before, but nothing compares to this. The shift from not noticing the negative to embracing the positive has been profound. So what are you waiting for? Join me on this transformation with Awaken 180. Call 844-346-1800. That's 844-346-1800 or online at awaken180weightloss.com.
Attention all business owners. The raining season is coming and it's important to ensure that your property storm drains are free from debris and functioning properly. That's where Duck Duck Rooter comes in. Our powerful VACCon truck can effectively clean out your storm drains and prevent costly damage to your property from flooding. Don't let clogged storm drains ruin your business and reputation. Call Duck Duck Rooter today to schedule a cleaning before the rains hit. 904-862-6769 or online at duckduckrooter.com.
Get ready, get set, and go to the Ready, Set, Go sales event going on now at Arlington Toyota. Arlington Toyota is loaded with fresh, new Toyota inventory. And right now, you can get interest rates as low as 4.9% for 72 months on select new Toyotas. Plus, get credit help with Arlington's pre-approval program, and every new Toyota comes with Arlington's lifetime warranty. It's the Ready, Set, Go sales event in person, 10939 Atlantic Boulevard, and online at arlingtontoyota.com.
Clearwater. John, I can't even mow my side yard. It's so soggy. Man, my builder sucks.
Brent, calm down. This is a common problem in neighborhoods where houses are built too close together. You need gutters and a properly installed French drain that will soak up subsurface water. We can completely dry it up.
So I can take my builder off my speed dial now, huh?
Yeah, we got you, buddy. Let that builder bitterness go.
Clearwater irrigation and drainage too.
Instant Keys. You don't have to go to the dealer. Instant Keys comes to you. For lost or broken keys or nearly any make and model of vehicle, call 722-1111 for Instant Keys locksmith service.
Men suffering from erectile dysfunction or PE, frustrated taking pills that don't work. Here's a message from Prime Men's Medical Center.
I'm Dr. Simovitz. Prime Men's Medical Center offers breakthrough treatments with men lasting longer than ever without pain or surgery.
Call now. Your consultation and first treatment are free. You'll see instant results right in the office. Call Prime Men's Medical Center now. 904-664-8217. That's 904-664-8217.
What smelled funny but smells great? A Kuhn Flowers floral arrangement. Kuhn Flowers. The name is synonymous with excellence for over 75 years. High Flying Jacko here for your next floral purchase. Call on Kuhn Flowers.
1010XL is presented by Farah & Farah, exclusive injury law firm of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Protecting you and your family. Call 396-5555. Jacksonville. This is Hacker After Dark on 1010XL.
Yes, it is. Ladies basketball, Elite Eight, right to go to the Final Four. A rematch of last year's national championship game. Iowa's going to beat LSU. Iowa up 8, 26 seconds to go. Caitlin Clark tonight, 39 points, 12 assists, 7 rebounds, has hit 9 3-pointers. Iowa up 8, 26 seconds to go, as they look like they'll get some revenge on LSU, who beat them for the national title last year. Speaking of basketball, let's talk a little NBA. My Orlando Magic just survived. They played awful tonight, but this time of year, it doesn't matter. Just get the wins. They got the win tonight, 104-103 over Portland. Let's talk Orlando. Let's look at the NBA playoff picture in both the East and the West with Brian Toporek. He covers the NBA for Bleacher Report and Forbes, and he joins me next. Hacker After Dark on a Monday evening here in Jacksonville, Florida. And we're glad you're with us on 1010XL and on 92.5 FM.
This is Green Bay Packers quarterback Aaron Rodgers.
This is Leon Washington from Andrew Jackson High School, Florida State University, and the New York Jets.
And you're listening to 1010XL?
1010XL.
92.5 FM.
Mia here, and let me tell you about one of our area's best resorts, the Sawgrass Marriott Golf Resort and Spa. The Sawgrass Marriott is not only a great destination for a vacation, but it is also a great destination for dining on the Florida's first coast. 1912 Ocean Bar and Rooftop is now open on Ponte Vedra Boulevard, featuring Ponte Vedra's only oceanfront rooftop bar and lounge. Serving finely crafted cocktails and delectable eats, it's open daily from 4 to 10 with complimentary valet parking.
Without the ones like you, who work tirelessly to keep things running, everything would suddenly stop. Hospitals, factories, schools, and power plants, they all depend on you. No matter the weather, emergency, or time of day, you're the ones who get it done. At Grainger, we're here for you with professional-grade industrial supplies. Count on real-time product availability and fast delivery. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Let's go! It's time for opening night, so don't you dare miss the Jacksonville Sharks' first home game against the IFL defending champions, the Bay Area Panthers, Saturday, April 6th at the VyStar Veterans Memorial Arena. Kickoff 7 o'clock. Let's go! Tickets as low as $15. You can't find Saturday family, affordable fun anywhere else. Call 904-621-0700 or go to jacksharks.com. Dust off your boots, grab your cowboy hat for Western night. Join us at 5 p.m. for Shark Fest, every home game located outside the arena for our pre-game party. Help us rock the tank as we roll out the 2023 NAL Championship banner. Let's go! Don't miss our opening game. It's this Saturday, April 6th, 7 o'clock. Let's show them what Jax is bringing to the table at the VyStar Veterans Memorial Arena. Be a part of indoor football fun and exciting, non-stop action. For tickets as low as $15, call 904-621-0700. Don't forget your cowboy hats. Let's go! Let's go!
Go inside your home team's locker room with Jags beat reporter Hayes Carline.
Check out my blog at 1010XL.com
so you can catch all the news and nuggets you need to know.
My blog is brought to you by Roland Reese Plumbing,
where quality and experience count.
Hey everybody, Mike Dempsey here for Dandy Foods. Dandy subs and sandwiches. Look, we always want you to think about those great options as you're driving around Duval. But the beauty is, even as I'm dropping pounds, Dandy's got great options for me as well. Told you all about their protein packs, delicious salads that they have out there. They have fruit cups for on the go. You know what they have. Veggie snack trays. You can grab those on the go as well. Perfect, healthy snack. Dandy is the name to know when you're on the go. So stop into a Gates store anywhere around Duval and make yours a Dandy, and do it today.
Imagine waking up this time next week and being 100% debt-free. No credit cards, no car loan, no personal loan. Hey, it's Prosser here, and Loan Pronto's Equity Express line of credit can make that happen. Homeowners are turning their home equity into cash almost instantly. With Loan Pronto's AI-based system, you can get approval in about 10 minutes with almost no documentation, no appraisal, and no hassle. You can get hundreds of thousands of dollars out of your home. Use that money to pay off all your other loans. The average homeowner saves over $850 a month doing this. Listen, your home value's way up. You can use that to wipe out all those credit cards, get some money for a home improvement. Literally hundreds of thousands are at your fingertips, and approval is just minutes away. So call now, 904-999-1508, 904-999-1508. That's loanpronto.com at 904-999-1508. NMLS 1661781, subject to lender approval, equal housing lender.
Hey everybody, Mike Dempsey here for Dandy Foods. Dandy subs and sandwiches. Look, we always want you to think about those great options as you're driving around Duval. But the beauty is, even as I'm dropping pounds, Dandy's got great options for me as well. Told you all about their protein packs, delicious salads that they have out there. They have fruit cups for on the go. You know what they have. Veggie snack trays. You can grab those on the go as well. Perfect, healthy snack. Dandy is the name to know when you're on the go. So stop into a Gates store anywhere around Duval and make yours a Dandy, and do it today.
Hey, Hicken here, or just call me Danny Dreamfinders. For a limited time, on select move-in ready homes, Dreamfinders Homes is offering an amazing 3.99% interest rate in year one of your mortgage. Now is your chance to lock down the rate. You heard me right. 3.99% offer in year one. Visit dreamfindershomes.com for sales event information and get the game. Interest rate available on select move-in ready homes. Restrictions and limitations apply. Go to dreamfindershomes.com for more details.
David here with Royal Pest Services. Man, don't let your yard be torn up by that heavy aeration machine this spring. Visit RoyalPestServices.com to learn more about our granular aeration. Broadcast throughout the tree and shrubs to break up that compacted soil. Visit RoyalPestServices.com.
Test your aim to help local kids succeed. It's the 6th annual Mackenzie Noel Wilson Foundation Clay Shoot to support the Boys and Girls Clubs of Northeast Florida and Mackenzie's Camp Deep Pond, Thursday, May 13th at Jack's Clay Target Sports. Get your team and the Boys and Girls Club take care of the rest. Ammo, cart, clays, breakfast bites, lunch, and goodies. Proceeds benefit 56 area clubs serving over 5,200 area kids every day. Go to bgcnf.org/events.
Men suffering from ED or PE?
You'll see instant results on your first visit at Prime Men's Medical Center. For a limited time, your initial consultation and first treatment are totally free. You'll even get a gift that enhances performance in the bedroom. Call 904-664-8217.
1010XL is presented by Farah and Farah, exclusive injury law firm of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Protecting you and your family. Call 396-5555. Jacksonville. Let's ring up another guest on the All-Pro Roofing phone line.
Back here on 1010XL and 92.5 FM in the city of Jacksonville, we are glad you are with us. The NBA regular season, well, coming down the home stretch. Most teams have between 7 and 9 games remaining in the regular season. The play-in tournament is just, 2.5 weeks away, and we are less than 3 weeks away from the NBA playoffs. With all that being said, my buddy Brian Toporek of Bleacher Report and Forbes, he's certainly one of our guys here when it comes to the NBA, and he's always kind enough to join us here on 1010XL in Jacksonville. Brian, how you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Brian, we're good. You and I talked about a month ago. At that point, Orlando was one of the hottest teams in the league. They've cooled off a tad, I guess, although they lost 3 heartbreakers to 3 very good Western Conference teams. But at the end of the day, Brian, at the time you and I are talking, they've clinched no worse than the 8th seed in the Eastern Conference, so they know they're guaranteed now at least 2 postseason games, which is certainly a change from what they're used to in Central Florida.
Yeah. I mean, I would frankly be surprised if they fall out of the top 6. I think they are in relatively good shape to finish, as I know they've got a 1.5 game lead over the Pacers with only 8-9 games to go. So I think they are probably going to end up as the number 5 seed. They've got a bunch of not great teams coming up on their schedule here. Portland tonight, we're recording this on Monday, and then Charlotte later this week, Chicago, close out with 2 against Milwaukee, and then Philly. But at that point, Milwaukee especially could be locked into its seed and maybe doesn't play Dame, doesn't play Giannis in those last few games. So, yeah, I think the Magic are in great shape for a top 6 seed, and then we'll just have to see how this battle at 3, 4, and 5 shake out to figure out who they're going to get in the first round.
Now, let's be honest. I mean, I got Orlando Magic blinders on, but I'm not naive enough to expect much in the postseason. I mean, this is a team that 2 guys are above the age of 27. Everybody else is 27 or younger. It is crazy how young they are. They're the 3rd youngest team in the league. If it is 1 round and out, if they do make the top 6 and they lose in 5 or 6 games, whatever, in the NBA Eastern Conference first round, would you still call this season in Orlando a success?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it's very rare for teams to just go from out of the playoffs to the finals. I mean, it's typically very incremental, and just going from where they were 2 years ago when they were 22-60 to above 500, guaranteed to finish above 500 this year, very likely to be in the first round of the playoffs for the first time in 4 years. A clear success for them because they still have so many young guys that they're going to continue building around moving forward. It's not like this is a flash in the pan. Like, Paolo Banchero's not going anywhere. Franz Wagner's not going anywhere. Jalen Suggs, presumably is not going anywhere. I know they have a couple of key guys who will be free agents this summer, but they also have a ton of flexibility moving forward. So I think this is a very, very promising season for them, and should, this is where it gets tricky. This is where they really need to make the right moves. And if you make the wrong one, this is where teams trip up on the way to championship contention. So I'm not saying the Magic are guaranteed to sustain this, but with Paolo and Franz especially, I think they're going to remain. I don't think they're at risk of becoming this year's Washington Wizards anytime soon.
Brian Toporek of Bleacher Report and Forbes here with us on 1010XL in Jacksonville. Brian, you mentioned 22 wins, Jamal Mosley's first year as head coach, 34 wins last year, and at the time you and I are talking, they now have 43 wins. That's a 20-win plus improvement in just 2 years. Mosley was rewarded with a brand new contract extension since the last time you and I talked. Just your thoughts on Jamal Mosley and the job he's done down there with the Magic.
Yeah, I think he's done a great job so far. I think we'll see how again, the playoffs will be a new crucible for them, and we'll see what that it typically tends to expose the cracks in your team that don't always show up in the regular season. And it's really valuable information to have, because then you can see, oh, okay, this is how teams, when they have the chance to really scout us in depth and they're really trying to pick on our weaknesses, this is what they are targeting. And, you could have some suspicions about what that might be, but until we see it in action, we won't know. So it's hard to render final judgment on the Magic and on Jamal Mosley until we see how they fare in that setting. But clearly, going from where they were 2 years ago to where they are now, I think right now they have the second best defense in the NBA, at least according to Basketball Reference, in terms of defensive rating. It's really hard to get young guys to buy in on defense. A lot of teams, I think you could ask Steve Clifford over in Charlotte about that, and he would have a very different response. So I think that alone is a really promising development. And, again, it certainly helps to have a bunch of top 10 picks, and Paolo Franz and Jalen Suggs especially, Markelle Fultz in that mix as well. But, it still requires coaching to get the best out of them. And I think we've seen a lot of progress from Franz throughout his entire career. Paolo has been, was awesome last year, is built on that this year. And then Jalen Suggs has been probably one of the better stories for the Magic this season. His development offensively has taken him from, oh, okay, this guy's great on defense, but he might be a total liability, to, oh, this guy might be the franchise point guard of the future.
Brian, final thought on the Magic before we branch out. You're one of the guys that saw this coming. I mean, if memory serves, before the year, you wrote a big, huge article about, it was like a sleeping giant in Orlando. So I guess you're not surprised that they've made this big of a turnaround in just a year or two span.
I am not, and you're absolutely right. I was actually looking through my Forbes archive the other day to find some of my old James Harden work, since that was a storyline again last week, and I did scroll by the old, I called him the sleeping giant in the East. So, no, I'm not surprised by this. You could see it coming, and you could see it coming toward the end of last year, and then, them continuing to add a pair of lottery picks this past offseason as well. And we haven't seen, at least Anthony Black is in the rotation. We really haven't seen that much of Jet Howard this year. So that's what's even scarier. If one or both of those guys hit, then the Magic, even if they lose a Gary Harris or Markelle Fultz or Jonathan Isaac in free agency, they have this pipeline of young talent that they're continuing to add. And I think it's only going to become more valuable under the way that the NBA is going to work moving forward under this new collective bargaining agreement. Having this cheap young talent under contract and is going to be very desirable. So I think the Magic are in really good shape long term. It's really now just, again, what's the big move that they make? Do they go for a third star next to Paolo and Franz? Do they continue just with this internal core that they already have? Do they make a big splash in free agency? I think that will determine the ultimate upside of this group, but really, really promising so far.
If they stay in the top 6, it's almost a certainty it's going to be either Cleveland or New York in round 1. Who do they want to see? Who would be the best chance for them to pull the upset?
It's a tough question because the Knicks, we just saw last night, Josh Hart after the game says he'd be pleasantly surprised if either Julius Randle or OG Anunoby return at some point this year. If I thought OG was definitely going to be back by the playoffs, I would say Cleveland by far. If there's a chance that they don't have OG, they don't have Julius Randle, and then I know Mitchell Robinson just returned recently, so I'm not 100% sure of his status moving into the playoffs, but if he has a setback, if they're down 3 starters, I think it's a lot more even. Cleveland, I think, has just been inconsistent this year. I know injuries have been a big issue for them with Mobley and Mitchell and even Darius Garland, I believe. Jared Allen's basically the only one of their 4 who has been healthy for most of the year. I'm just still scarred by how badly they got destroyed last year on the glass by the New York Knicks in the first round of the playoffs. I know rebounding is not necessarily a strong suit for the Magic, so maybe that's something that they couldn't exploit. But I think, Suggs against one of Garland or Mitchell is a big weapon, and I think Paolo could have an advantage. I'm trying to conceptualize who would get each individual matchup. I would imagine Mobley's probably on Paolo, and then who takes Franz. I don't know that Cleveland has a good answer for him as well. So I would lean Cleveland just because I think they've got some big questions hanging over them. They have a lot of pressure hanging over them going into the playoffs this year, whereas the Knicks, they're also just having a really surprisingly good season. And I think the injuries kind of make it a free roll for them where they're not under as much pressure as Cleveland will be.
Couple of more for Brian Toporek, Bleacher Report, and Forbes covering the NBA with us here on 1010XL in Jacksonville. Brian, outside of Orlando, and we know how great Boston is, Milwaukee looks like they're going to be locked into the 2. We mentioned Cleveland and New York. Everybody else, Philadelphia, Miami, Indiana, I guess if you want to lump Chicago and Atlanta in there, they'll be the other 2 in the play-in. Is anybody a threat? I mean, I guess realistically, Philly, Indy, Miami, out of those 3, is anybody a threat to pull an upset in round 1?
Well, we just got word about an hour ago that Joel Embiid could be back as soon as Tuesday against the Oklahoma City Thunder. He hasn't played since the end of January because he had a meniscus injury that required what the Sixers refuse to call surgery. They just keep calling it a procedure. So I'll defer to them, but he clearly had surgery on his knee. So we'll see what he looks like, but it's easy to forget before his injury, the Sixers were right there with the Bucks for the number 2 seed in the East. And since his injury, they traded Patrick Beverley, Marcus Morris. They got in Buddy Hield, Cameron Payne, Kyle Lowry, who's been playing well for them. So I think if you're looking for a potential dark horse outside of the top 3 or 4, I think Philly is the obvious answer. I know Miami just went on the run last year, and you never want to rule out Miami either. So that 7-8 game is going to be huge if it's Philly-Miami, because the winner probably gets the Bucks in round 1, and I think either one of those teams very feasibly could upset the Bucks. The loser has to go play the 9-10, or the winner of the 9-10 game, probably wins that game, but then has Boston in the first round of the playoffs, and I do not like either team's chances against Boston. But I'm kind of sad that we don't already know the exact matchups, because I am very ready to pick the Sixers over the Bucks in the first round of the playoffs if that's what it comes down to.
Wow, interesting. And look, Boston, quickly, because I want to end in the West. Is clear with Boston, all right, NBA Finals or the season's a complete failure?
Unfortunately, yes. And I hate to frame it that way, but I also remember the 2015-16 Warriors, who won 73 games, the most all time, and the only way we talk about them is a punchline, because they blew a 3-1 lead in the finals. So when you have this level of success, when you are a historically good team, you need to prove it in the playoffs, and it needs to end with at least a finals appearance, if not a championship. I mean, especially with it's hard to imagine that the window is ever going to be more open for Boston than it is this year, with Embiid just coming back, with the turmoil with the Bucks, Damian Lillard being so hot and cold, the coaching change midseason, all the injuries in Cleveland, all the injuries in New York. Like, the chips have fallen so far in Boston's favor that, I mean, they have a golden opportunity to take advantage of here. And yeah, I think if they don't make the finals, they're going to be ruining that for a while.
Brian Toporek, Bleacher Report, and Forbes. Brian, as we wrap up, let's head out west. Look, the upper tier of the Western Conference has been pretty steady, right? Oklahoma City has not fallen off. Minnesota has not fallen off. Denver, obviously, is there. The Clippers have fallen off a little bit. But the bottom, I mean, just fighting, scratching, clawing to get in between the Lakers and Golden State and Phoenix and Dallas. I mean, that play-in tournament in the West is going to be nothing short of sensational. How do you think, 7, 8, 9, 10 will even itself out as we come down the stretch here? And ultimately, out of those 4 teams, who are the two that will get into the 8-team postseason?
Yeah, I mean, I would have picked Dallas, but Dallas has now moved into the 5 seed, I believe, because they've been one of the hottest teams in the NBA in recent weeks. So right now it's Sacramento at the 7, Phoenix at the 8, Lakers 9, Warriors 10, and then Rockets are 2 games behind the Warriors, and the Warriors have the tiebreak. So I think the Rockets, I know they were also one of the hottest teams in the NBA. I think 13-2 in March, so I don't want to totally rule them out, but I think the Warriors hold them off for the 10 seed. Man, it's Kings Suns in the 7-8. You lean Phoenix, but I don't feel good about it. I just don't feel good about this Phoenix team at all, honestly. I think Bradley Beal has just not panned out for them the way that they needed him to, given the kind of roster building restrictions that came with acquiring him. So I think Phoenix could win that game, but I don't like their chances of going on a deep run. Lakers, Warriors in the 9-10, man, that is just such a toss-up. I guess you lean Lakers maybe, but it's one hot Steph Curry shooting stretch. Like, that's the scary thing about the play-in, especially for the teams in the 9-10. It is one game and you lose. Like, there's just so much variance there. You could play that thing 100 times and maybe it's 55-45 one way or the other. But if you get the 8 3-pointers from Steph Curry night that one time, then it's Warriors. So I'll take Suns, and I guess the Kings too would then just play the Lakers, Warriors. Oof. Can I just cop out and say I have no idea, but I'm excited to see it?
Well, that's the crazy thing, right? I mean, if you're Minnesota, if you're Oklahoma City, you've battled and fought your tail off through 82 games to get a 1 or 2 seed in the West, and your reward is going to be either Phoenix, Golden State, or the Lakers. I mean, it's absolutely nuts what's going to transpire in the Western Conference, and we're going to find out in a very short amount of time. Brian Toporek, Bleacher Report, and Forbes, always kind enough to join us here on 1010XL in Jacksonville. Brian, we're only a couple of weeks away, man. We'll probably dial your phone right in the middle of round 1 of the postseason, and we'll see where things are at that point. Always appreciate you, my friend.
Of course, anytime.
And thank you to my buddy Brian Toporek of Bleacher Report and Forbes covering the NBA for joining us tonight here on Hacker After Dark. As, the regular season of the NBA winding down, the play-in tournament a little over 2 weeks away, and we are less than 3 weeks away from the NBA playoffs getting underway all across the league. Of course, 20 teams qualify for the postseason, if you will, 10 in the East, 10 in the West. You have the play-in tournaments for the seeds 7 through 10 in both conferences. And as it stands right now, the Orlando Magic sitting in the 5 spot, only a game or 2 back of the 4 seed Cleveland and the 3 seed the New York Knicks. So there's a lot to play for Orlando over the last couple of weeks. They're 3 games clear of the play-in tournament right now, with about 8 games remaining in their regular season. Well, that'll just about do it. A very busy Monday evening, as they usually are here on Hacker After Dark. We certainly appreciate you guys hanging out with us here on 1010XL and on 92.5 FM. We have a ton of people to thank tonight. Again, Brian Toporek, Bleacher Report, and Forbes. He is certainly one of our NBA guys here on Hacker After Dark, and we appreciate Brian taking time out for us tonight. Thank you to Luke Easterling of Athlon Sports, talking draft, as here we are on April 1st, the NFL draft 3 weeks from Thursday up in Detroit, round number 1. Of course, the Jaguars with the 17th pick in the first round. All indications are, wide receiver, defensive back. That seems to be the positions of need for the Jaguars. I agree with that. I also think, though, that if one of those guys falls, particularly a guy like Jared Verse, and I don't think Jared Verse will be there at 17, but what if he is? Because the more mock drafts you see, more times than not, Verse is there at 17, and I understand it might not be the biggest position of need, but the idea of having Josh Allen, Trayvon Walker, Eric Armstead, and Jared Verse on that Jaguar defensive line. Good grief. We'll see. Could a guy like Brock Bowers potentially fall? That was unthinkable, even a few weeks ago. Could he be there? Would that be something the Jaguars would consider? I don't think either Bowers or Verse will be there. But what I do think is you're going to have at least 4 quarterbacks gone. I do think you're going to have a run on offensive tackles. So I think the corner market and guys like Verse potentially could drop farther than they normally would because there's going to be so many quarterbacks taken in the first part of the draft, which would certainly help the Jaguars out. And again, in hour number 1, thank you to Demetrius Harvey of the Florida Times-Union. Always love talking Jags with Demetrius. And look, I asked him flat out, why do some Jaguar fans, why do some of you, that's some of you, just flat out still not like Trent Baalke no matter what he does? I thought Demetrius and I had a pretty good conversation on that. In fact, we're going to do it all week. How much better has Trent Baalke made this team in his tenure? We did the quarterback position and the running back position 2021 compared to where we are now. Of course, 21 was the first year Baalke was the permanent GM. Tomorrow night we'll do tight ends and wide receivers. But just how much better is this roster? How much better has Trent Baalke made this organization in the 3 years that he's been here? And I think across the board at every position, you're going to find it's been an improvement. Maybe not the improvement to the extent that you want it, but it has been an improvement. And we'll continue that conversation all week here on Hacker After Dark. Dylan Denmark was your producer tonight. Dylan, great job as always. I'm the Hacker Ryan Green. And Jacksonville, thank you for spending part of your Monday evening with us here on Hacker After Dark. As always, we certainly appreciate it. We will be back to do it all over again tomorrow night on a Tuesday. Remember, new hours. We're 8 to 10 now every night. Nothing against 10 to midnight, but I'm probably not going to miss that. We're 8 o'clock to 10 o'clock every night, Monday through Friday right now on Hacker After Dark. So join us tomorrow night, same time, as usual, 8 o'clock for HAD. So for all of us here on Hacker After Dark, have an absolutely terrific remainder of your Monday evening, and we will do it all over again tomorrow night on a Tuesday beginning at 8 o'clock. Until then, good night, Jacksonville.